G'day folks, today I thought I'd give you a bit of a rundown on how our little dwarf Katui coffee plant is going. I posted a couple of pictures of the ripening berries and bits and pieces on social media and have had a few people message me, so I thought I'd give you a quick rundown. This plant here is called a dwarf Katui and we bought it in January of 2016 from Daleys Fruit Nursery, and I'll pop a link to their site down in the description. Not a sponsor, I just think they're a really good supplier. It's lived its life pretty much all exclusively in root pouches. It was potted up into a 7-gallon or 30-litre root pouch not long after we purchased it, and it's been in one pretty much all ever since. And it's also been in this spot down in the back corner of our property. You can see our turmeric starting to die off, as well as some ginger down there. It's just because we're coming into the cooler months of the year here, so they always tend to die off. But that also means that it's almost time to pick some ripe berries off this dear little lady. It's actually underneath our mango tree, our Bowen mango tree, and it is facing north, which is that way. So in the southern hemisphere, you want all your tropical heat-loving plants to face north, because that's the side our winter sun comes from. If I was in the northern hemisphere, I'd have this in a southerly facing aspect, because that's the direction from your winter sun. But as you can see, she's doing quite well. At the moment, she's sitting in a 56-litre or 15-gallon root pouch. Just a quick disclaimer for you folks who aren't aware, I actually sell these root pouches here in Australia, and you can check out the link down in the description below. So these root pouches are made from recycled water bottles, believe it or not, and a mix of natural fibres, and they help air prune the roots. What happens is the roots will grow out to the side here, push through the fabric, dry, warmer air on the outside, and the roots die off. That sends a signal for the tree to set out new, younger, healthier roots that assimilate nutrients and take up water a lot more efficiently to sprout. So you end up with a lot of young, healthy roots in here, and no root bound issues, no spiraling of roots around the sides or anything like that. You might get a little bit of a root build up on the base if it's sitting on concrete, as it's always moist down there, so the roots may spiral a little bit, but nowhere near what you would find in a plastic pot. I found them to be absolutely fantastic. In fact, when I pulled this deer out from her smaller pouch to put in this, I found there was virtually no roots around the outside of the soil mass whatsoever. So I'm pretty much well sold on these guys here. I think they're a fantastic idea, and as I said, yeah, you can purchase them from me directly if you want to check out that link in the description. Now, as for the soil blend I've been using, I've seen a few different things on different clips and different sites. I used a premium potting mix for the soil blend for this, along with some compost and also some slow release pellets. You don't need any magic fertilizers or anything like that. Just a good, healthy, organic blend is all you need. The one caveat there is that it's something that needs to be free draining, because coffee does not like a lot of water around the roots, and you will find in tropical climates where this fella is a native to, they generally have fairly free flowing soils, which means the water drains out of them. So yeah, it's just one of those things. You've got to be prepared to put a little bit of effort into your soil selection. Even if you plant in the ground, make sure it's nice and loose and fairly free draining, otherwise you could have a few issues. As for feeding this dear lady up, all I've done is top up the pouch every couple of months with some compost, pop some of these mango leaves over the top of it as mulch, and that's pretty much all seen her through. And as you can see by the amount of fruit we have down in there, I think I've done something right. So that's basically the maintenance feed. The only other supplemental feeding I've really given her is some potassium just after she started flowering, because it does help with flower and fruit development to a point. I used a kelp powder which is high in potassium. I mixed that up and popped that in there, and that pretty much will, yeah, I think it helped with the amount of fruit that we have set on here. I did have a few little fruits that dried off and fell off early on in the season, but yeah, I have had no issues since. And pest issues, which is pretty obvious looking at this leaf here. The main pests that we've had on her is the locust, the large brown locusts, grasshoppers. So the only other pests that we have with this plant are actually in that little ball of muck and dirt there, and they are mealybugs. What happens is the ants, you'll probably see some crawling up the stem down here. The ants farm those guys there for their honeydew. Just like aphids, they secrete a sweet honeydew, and the ants farm them, so there's going to be some mealybugs in there. I'll see if I can fish a couple out just to show you. So you might be able to make them out up in there. They don't appear to do much damage to the plant at all, so they're the only real other pests that we've had on the plant. Overall, the plant appears to be rather healthy, with no intervention from me whatsoever, other than trying to dislodge those little critters in there. I just noticed down here we have a berry that's already ripe. Oh, just fell off of my fingers. This skin here, actually, some people will dry it out and make a herbal infusion from it. You can also eat it. It's a very sweet fruit. We ate a fair few last year as we were harvesting the little beans from inside the cherries. We'll just open this one up and give you a bit of a gander if I can balance this phone. So I just got you balancing on some pavers here. I'll try and catch you if you fall. But this is the inside of the little cherry or berry. That's the fruit that they dry out to make an infusion from. And I'll try and separate these guys. They're a little bit slimy and slippery. I think I've broken him open. But there on the inside is the little coffee bean, or one of them. So there's the little green bean. You can see I've taken off some of the parchment from the outside. It's actually got a bit of a slime on it. So what they do with these guys is they either dry them out in the sun, or they can ferment that slime off, and then they dry it off. And this little coating here, that gets removed, and then you have the little green coffee bean itself. And that's what they, after a while, after it's dried out for a while, they roast and we drink as coffee. So that's the inside of the berry itself. Very, very tacky and sticky. So as I said, this is growing in the back corner of our property down near our native beehive. And this side here is facing north, so it does get the majority of the sun. And also too, the sun tends to go directly overhead that way through summer to the southwest. So it mainly gets a lot of sun on this side. And as you can see, probably make out by the numerous berries or cherries or whatever you want to call them on here, there is a load of fruit on this side here. So around the back side of the plant, as you can see, yeah, it's a little bit more sparse with branches, and also too the cherries themselves haven't sort of formed as densely as they have on the other side itself. So that might be something for you to consider when you position it in your yard. Climate wise, these guys do prefer a nice warm environment, so we're lucky here in the subtropics. I've seen some people say they take anywhere up to 4 years to fruit. Ours fruited in the first 12 months. We had a few little berries on it. It's been 3 years till we've got a decent crop like this from it. If you are in a cooler temperate area, it's quite possible you could create a microclimate using a brick wall or something along those lines to store some heat and grow these in a pot against it, and you might end up with a decent harvest. You'll just have to have a bit of an experiment to see how it goes. These can grow in full sun. That's how they grow in plantations around the world. But yeah, it is recommended that you acclimatise them slowly. Otherwise you might end up with some leaf burn and damage to the plant itself. But yeah, if you're in a warm, temperate to tropical location, these are a fantastic plant. I have seen other people grow them as houseplants inside. They do have some fairly nice foliage when they're not attacked by locusts, so they would make a fairly decent houseplant, I think. So I can't show you how we're roasting the beans at the moment, but what I will do is I'll bring you along in a couple of months' time, hopefully, once we move back in the house and settled in, and I'll show you how we're going to process and roast the beans. Not only that, I might bring you along for a bit of a harvest clip as well when the time comes. Also too, just a reminder for any of you Aussies out there who are interested in the root pouch, there's a link in the description, and also there'll be a button at the end of the clip up here as well. So yeah, I would recommend having a crack at growing some of these if you live in a warmer climate for the berries, or just for the foliage as a houseplant if you're in a cooler region. Also, I need to thank you marvellous folks over on Subscribestar and the YouTube membership program. Thank you very much, folks. As always, you can check out our super contributors down in the description below. Hop on over to their websites and their Facebook pages and show them some love. I'd really appreciate it. I have to pretty much will wrap it up there. My arm's getting tired from blocking out the sun with the watering can. So I do hope you have enjoyed this clip and it's helped you out a little bit, and I will catch you next time. Cheers folks, and have a top one.